Survive the storm.
Man, it's cold outside. Saturday, it was as cold as I've been in a very long time. It's been as cold as it was that Chiefs and Dolphins game a couple of years ago. It was that cold this past weekend.
Yeah, funny enough, I was taking the trash cans out. I forget a couple days ago, the other day, and I was thinking to myself, I'm glad I didn't have to play that game because I am freezing just walking the trash cans down the driveway. So, yeah, I did think about that game during the storm.
So, a lot of things to talk to you about, man, since the last time you've been on here. Let's start with this. You played under Eric Bieniemy. How excited are you? What do you make of the news that he is returning as the Chiefs offensive coordinator?
I would say it's not surprising news. I think it's interesting kind of seeing the reaction to it because I feel like for the last few years, it's a lot of we don't like Nagy and Bieniemy was better, the numbers were better, all these different things, and then he brings Bieniemy back, and there's a little bit of we don't necessarily love this move and wanted to get some fresh blood, all those things. So I think within the parameters of what was realistic, it's a great hire. Again, you're talking about one of the best head coaches of all time, a guy who's been the offensive coordinator, the play caller, the mastermind for his whole career, one of the best ever to do that as well. He deserves to choose how he wants this year to be, whether he wants to be the guy in charge and to take full control and figure it out the way he's changed his playbook and figured out pretty much everything else the rest of his career, or whether he wanted to just be like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I want to give the reins to someone younger, maybe one of the Shanahan McVay guys, and I'm just going to kind of go into that CEO mode. Obviously, to me, this signals that he's choosing to take full control of the offense and to do what he thinks is necessary to change it. So within those parameters, I think it's a great hire. I've been vocal about wanting someone like Mike McDaniel. I thought he would have been perfect, great for the modern era of football, what the league's kind of trending towards. But again, I think coach has definitely earned and deserves the right to choose how he wants to fix it. And it seems like he's deciding, like, this is my team, this is my offense, this is my quarterback, and we're going to figure it out together.
One of the things that I've said, and I'm kind of go through this list of things, I know that you and I are on slightly different sides, at least when it comes to this hire and what it means and what it symbolizes, is a question I ask is, would Andy Reid in 2026 hire Andy Reid that was starting out? Because Andy Reid, when he was starting out, was an offensive line coach and then moved up to quarterback coach. And then eventually Mike Holmgren was like, hey, you should be the offensive coordinator. And we saw what that turned into. And he had a great head coaching career. So I'm with you. I wanted the Chiefs to kind of look for that late 30s, early 40s, rising star type. And we've seen that if you work under Andy Reid, if you do a couple of years, you can turn that into a head coaching job. That's the direction that I wanted them to go down. And one thing that upsets me a little bit is, and I'm sure you see this on social media too, I feel like the theme from everybody was we want new, we want different, we want change. Well, their first move of the offseason is bringing back the old offensive coordinator. They're not off to a good start if you want it new, different, and change. And I wanted them to at least cast a little bit wider net to find that next OC. And it just doesn't sound like that's the direction that they went down.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they brought in a wide receiver coach who's been outside of the Reed tree for the last 20 years and has been in New England, which is a very different offense stylistically. So that was the first hire. If you want to go first moves of the offseason, he fired a bunch of coaches and, a bunch of guys left. So there is a lot more turnover than we typically see from, a Coach Reed system. I think to bring in the young guy and kind of hire him to be an offensive coordinator, I think the thing with Coach Reed is he was hired without ever being a coordinator, so that's not necessarily the best analogy. If you bring in one of those young guys and hire him, what is that person bringing you with Coach Reed still as the play caller and offense designer that a guy like Bieniemy is not bringing you? Because again, this is the argument, is he's going to bring some of Ben Johnson's stuff to the table. He's going to bring some tweaks and some alterations and some new and fresh ideas. It's not like he's just been, under Coach Reed this whole time the last few years. So I don't know what a younger guy would bring to the table that a guy like Bieniemy wouldn't, who's now been in one of the top offenses in the NFL, totally different system, way different emphasis, a lot of different coaching points, been exposed to, all these different things, college and pro. So I don't understand that argument, again, within the parameter that this is Reed's team, his offense, and he's going to be the one designing it and calling the plays. What does a 38-year-old who's the new up-and-coming thing really bring to the table that someone like Bieniemy doesn't? And how are those voices and ideas going to be implemented in a way that the new stuff Bieniemy is bringing wouldn't have been?
So let's talk about that then, because you obviously can speak to the voice that EB has, what it's like to play for him, what he brings to a locker room. A lot of people have talked about his character, holding guys accountable, the culture that he creates. You can speak to it. What do you make of EB, the offensive coordinator? What was it like to play under him?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great experience. I think all those things are true. I know people are kind of throwing that again into the hire's face that the best thing you can do is hire an offensive coordinator, and then the first thing everyone talks about is accountability. But if we look at the team from last year, would we have rather had guys being held accountable a little bit more, the details being a little bit sharper, especially receiver position, offensive line, all the false starts? If there was someone to be on those guys a little bit better than the coaching staff was, would there have been more production? Would there have been, another drive a game where instead of a field goal, it becomes a touchdown? Those types of things. I could argue pretty easily, yes. Like, would last year's team with better wide receiver coaching, better running back coaching, an offensive coordinator that gets on you the first sign that you're not doing stuff the way you're supposed to do on the field, be a better football team and a better offense? I think it's undoubtedly yes. Is that the widespread change everyone wants to see? No, it's not. So that's where I definitely understand both sides of it. But I think, again, what Bieniemy is bringing is that accountability, is the loud voice that's going to be on guys from the start of practice to the end of practice when he needs to. It's not like he's doing that all the time to everybody. I think he picks and chooses when he does that. I don't think you're ever going to see EB get on Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith because those guys bring it every single play of a practice. But are there guys that are younger that are going to need that? Is Josh Simlin someone who is going to respond to a guy in his ear? I don't know. I don't know the way Josh likes to be coached, but if that's something that he likes, that's a different style of coaching than what Coach Heck is going to bring, or Coach Reed. So I think there is the positive from that aspect. And then the other thing is he obviously is a former running back, but he's very good with blitz stuff. And that's not something that the Chiefs have necessarily struggled with the last few years, with how good they are at game planning, with how good Pat is at recognizing stuff. But he is very good at blitz protection and blitz pickup. So you're bringing in someone who, again, has now had some influence from another top coordinator, but what he can bring to picking up those blitzes on critical third down, some different ideas on how to defeat maybe some of the cover zero stuff, some of the disguised looks that we're seeing across the league, I think can be another benefit as well.
Can you explain on a day-by-day basis, or once the game plan is starting to be implemented, what kind of his role is? Because you've said it. It's Andy Reid's offense. It's his fingerprints. He's the one calling the plays. He's the design. But I've also heard a lot about how Andy kind of delegates, and he gives Andy Heck this role, or kind of Embry this role, or Matt Nagy this role. Once Reid kind of comes up with the game plan, comes up with the scheme and those things, what is then EB's responsibility? How is that being communicated to you as a player?
Yeah, I mean, he's addressing the offense as offensive coordinator when it's needed. I will say one of the benefits as an offensive lineman playing in Kansas City is that you're not part of offensive installs that don't really have to do with the offensive line. So, typical Wednesday, we'll get up there, kind of talk about stuff a little bit, and then you jump into an install and you do screens, you do the run game, which is, typically either offensive coordinator or Coach Reed's doing the screen game, Coach Heck is doing the run game, and then we leave because we don't need to be there for the pass install. So I can't say which guy is doing that, which voice is being heard from that. But then throughout the week, I mean, EB will address the offense. Saturday night in the hotel, EB's going to be doing, the red zone cut up, the breakdown, the last reminders. Coach Reed will do the first 15 install because that's kind of his baby there. But you're hearing from that guy daily throughout the course of the week. So, even if it's not necessarily that guy's offense and he's not the one calling the plays, it's still a strong voice.
This might be a weird question to ask you, and I'm not trying to make it seem like it's not important. But do you think that we, the public, we, the fans, kind of overemphasize who's calling the plays? Because sometimes it makes it seem like if you're not the one calling the plays, that you're not doing anything. And I'm thinking, well, there's a lot of other stuff that you could be doing or that are going on throughout the course of the game that don't revolve around you being the one that ultimately calls the HB counter on first down. Just, I guess, give us a little bit more insight on, okay, if Andy's the one calling the plays, what's Nagy's responsibility? What's EB's responsibility on a game day? And what are their roles in helping the machine continue to go round and round?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a very large role. I mean, that is something that when these teams are hiring coaches, if they're hiring guys who are coordinators, the question is always, is he going to call the plays, whether it's offense or defense? Because now they're juggling two roles. If you're doing all the same OC responsibilities and the head coach responsibilities, that's difficult for someone who hasn't done it before. On game day, I feel like people have talked about kind of the chain of command, the way coach calls plays is he'll kind of give the concept to the coordinator, and the coordinator will be the one in Pat's ear who's actually delivering the play, which is a little bit different, I think, than what most other OCs or head coaches. I think, it's McVay and Stafford's ear. I think we've all seen that clip of Stafford talking to his huddle and McVay's in his ear, and he's like, man, this guy's going on and on. But that's not going to be Coach Reed and Pat's ear. It's passed down to the offensive coordinator, whether that was Nagy or EB. And so he's the guy in Pat's ear. Throughout the course of the week, I mean, you're still doing all the game planning stuff. You're still trying to figure out the best way to attack the defense. Again, if EB's got a different slant than Nagy, where Nagy might be more pass game heavy, being a former quarterback in that world, and EB's a little bit more run game or play action or protection heavy, then as they're game planning, he can maybe add a couple nuggets here that is more to a specialty. But yeah, I would say the fact that you're a play caller is extremely important. Definitely puts a little bit more on your plate. The sequencing, figuring out what the other defense is going to do. Because in football, I mean, the reason you try to break tendencies is because you don't want things to be 100%. As a player, you like things to be 100%. If they line up this way, this is what they run. If they line up this other way, that's what they run. You don't want it to be 70% of the time they do this, 30% of the time they do that, because you can't really get a great feel for playing the 70% versus the 30%. Again, for a right tackle, if it's 70% of the time in this alignment, defensive end rushes up the field, 30% he rushes inside. Well, if I'm playing too much to that 70%, I'm giving up a short corner on the inside because of it. And the same thing works in the play calling world. Like if it's 3rd and 4 and they're supposed to run zone coverage 70% of the time and man coverage 30% of the time, if you call a play that only beats zone coverage, well, 30% of the time you're going to lose because it's man coverage. So that's where you have to build in these things of, half the field's a zone beater, half the field's a man beater, but also as the play caller, having a feel for the coordinator. Is the guy going to throw on that changeup on this 3rd and 4 where he knows you're expecting zone and you're going to run your best zone beater? He wants to surprise you with press man. And now I'm calling the man play when it's not the high percentage one. I just have this feel for the coordinator. And that's something that takes a lot of time, I think, for these guys to kind of figure out. And the way coach schedules that first 15 as well, all the new ideas for the week, new formations, wanting to see how the defense is going to react. He is gaining a ton of information for later in the game. And so that's, again, where the sequencing of making things look similar, putting in, counters to the counter to run that big play later in the game. It's a pretty big responsibility to call the plays, and it's fun for those guys, and I understand why you wouldn't want to give it up.
Right now, we're talking to Mitchell Schwartz joining us in studio, former All-Pro Super Bowl champion, getting his thoughts on Eric Bieniemy. One thing I am really excited about, especially as somebody that kind of banged this drum all season, was running the football and being more effective in running the ball. I don't think the Chiefs are ever going to be a run-heavy team. They don't need to be a run-heavy team. But I do think they can be much more efficient and effective when they run the ball than they've been these last couple of years. That I think you can say this about EB unequivocally. Whatever they decide to do at running back this upcoming year, they are going to get the most out of those running backs. So whether it's more of a role for Brashard Smith, whether they spend money in free agency to go get a running back, whether they wait till the 2nd or 3rd round to draft a running back, whatever the plan is at running back, it will be best executed with EB on the staff. His track record's too long, from Damian Williams to Kyle Monungai this year to Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West. We can go up and down the list. EB's going to get the most out of the run game, and for a team that hasn't really emphasized that the last couple of years, and now especially with your quarterback coming off a significant knee injury and you can't ask him to do everything and carry the ball as often as he had to last year, I am excited about that change in the offense.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think it's excellent for Smith, who is coming from receiver to learn that position with someone who is one of the best in the NFL. I mean, you didn't mention this past year, DeAndre Swift as well. I think by far had his best year, especially as like a pure running back within the flow of the offense. I am really looking forward to seeing if the run game, especially under center stuff, trends a little bit more towards Ben Johnson, the way he does angles, the way he does inside zone, mid zone, outside zone, or if EB kind of goes back to the way he did it a little bit before. I think Ben did it different, and so it'll be interesting for me to see that. But yeah, the run game, it doesn't need to be higher volume. It needs to be something that when you do it, it's good enough, and it has to be something that the defense cares about and wants to stop. That's been my issue with the run game the last few years. That's been my issue with the under center play action game, is that the team just gets under center 2 to 4 times a game to run the ball, to then run a play action. The other defense knows this isn't what the team is actually wanting to do in terms of getting under center, running the ball, being physical. It's just all to set up a play action. So they're happy to give up 6-7 yards of carry on under center runs because it's only going to happen 3 or 4 times, and they're happy to sit back and take away the play action that comes off of that, the under center stuff, because that's really what the threat when you get under center. So whether it migrates towards the Rams, Bills, that kind of under center, single back duo action where it's just downhill all the time, and then you got your play actions off of it. McVay gets his play actions a little different. I mean, the way he uses Puka, some of the other guys in these inserts in the blocking game, then they get the inserts into the passing game. You know, Buffalo obviously has done a great job running the ball and comboing that with some under center play action. Or whether he just kind of goes to West Coast style and more what he's used to. I'm not sure. He's not going to tell us, that's for sure. I think one thing from the press conference the other day, everyone is very frustrated, feeling like he's defensive and, oh, we were top 5 offense, all this other stuff. I can promise you, if he's planning a wholesale change for the offense, he's not going to tell you, not even in February, in January, the Super Bowl hasn't been played. He's not going to tell you, yeah, we're changing the offense. We're going to look more like Sean McVay. That's not going to happen. So we're just going to have to wait to see. It's going to be interesting, but I know that it seems like he's pretty excited for, the change and to silence a lot of people this year.
Day one of free agency, the Chiefs have pretty historically taken a big swing. They usually take a swing on day one. They got Jalen Moore last year on day one. They've just done those kind of things. Jawan Taylor a couple of years ago. I'm kind of leaning towards Breece Hall. Like, I was taking a look yesterday at James Cook contract, and if you're telling me they signed Breece Hall to James Cook contract, I can absolutely live with that. It's not a big cap hit. It's guaranteed money up front. Still gives you a lot of flexibility. That obviously radically changes your offense. He's from Wichita, went to school at Iowa State. This makes a lot of sense to me if you are the Chiefs. What do you want? What do you think their big swing day one of free agency is going to be?
That would be great. I feel like someone like Pierce would be maybe more impactful for the offense. My thing with the running back is it would be great to have a running back. I mean, watching Kenneth Walker last week, like, man, wouldn't that be awesome? But is that guy going to do enough in the limited touches to really change the dynamic of an offense? Potentially. Now, very much so potentially. If the other team is afraid that a guy's going to get 14 rushes, but it's not going to be for 57 yards, it might be for 112 yards with the seams and the too high and the space that this offense creates, maybe that does force them to alter their defensive structure, forces them to commit more guys to the box, forces them to step up to the play action in a way they're not currently doing. But will that guy really ever be a bell cow who gets 20-plus carries and the run game is leaned on? I'm not sure. Will a big, physical X-receiver who can beat one-on-one man coverage drastically alter the shape of the offense? I think yes. Like, a guy like that could definitely change the shape of the offense. Obviously, we know receivers haven't really been developed in Kansas City that much outside of Tyreek, especially in terms of a bigger guy in a man-beating role. But I think a guy like that would be more beneficial to this offense than a singular running back. But why not both?
Right now, we're joined in studio by Mitchell Schwartz. I don't know if you've had this conversation privately or not. Certainly not expecting you to tell us any private conversations you've had. What do you think Travis is going to do?
I don't know. I thought retirement was coming before this past season, so I think it's pretty clear he loves football. There's a lot that you can't do with your life once football's over. If you truly love the game, you're never going to get that opportunity back. Obviously, you can retire and come back, but with his age, I don't think that it's necessarily likely that he would take a year off and then come back. The hard part is the commitment to the offseason, to working out, to coming back in shape. Last year he was in fantastic shape. Had a pretty good year, numbers-wise. It's not, Pete Kelce. It's not going to be anymore based on his age and the wear. But he can still play football at a, pretty good clip. And if he loves doing it, then I think he should come back. If you're kind of on the fence, all those things, in 5 years, are you going to regret coming back or not coming back? You're probably going to regret not coming back because that's a year of football that you can't get back. So I don't know. Like I said, last year I thought that was going to be it. And I know what I would do if I was in this situation. I'd love retirement and I'd walk away very happy and go get married and start my life the new chapter. But he has like so many fun things. I think they just announced he's playing in the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Like, he's going to stay incredibly busy. He's going to do a lot of fun stuff. He's going to do, for the most part, whatever he wants to do post-career. So it's a very hard decision because there's two very even paths there.
Yeah, the analogy I made is, and it's the same. I don't want to make it seem like my job and your job are the same, but I think it is by this is 2 to 6 is the easy part. The hard part is 10 to 2. Like, if you can't do that part, then it just makes the 2 to 6 harder. So to what you were saying is,
wait, you actually like prepare for this?
I do.
Wow.
I know. Shockingly
Can you
enough.
verify, Rob? Is that true?
Yeah, shockingly enough, I do prepare for it. So I'm with you. Playing in the games is the reward of all the work that you put in. I think it was very obvious this year. And watching him, like, he took this offseason seriously. Like, he got back a lot of those things. If you can't put that time in and dedicate your time to it, then you're right. It's time for you to just go do something else. Go host a television show. Go be in a movie. You're marrying one of the most famous people in the world. Like, it's time for you to go do those things. So that's why, to me, that decision is going to answer that question for us. And ultimately, that's not something I can answer. You can answer. Like, that's something he has to answer for himself. Am I still willing to put in the time from March to August that needs to for me to do this job at a high level once the season gets here?
Yeah, I mean, the benefit to being in his position is he can basically do that the easiest way he wants to. Personal trainer or, flying people out or being wherever he needs to be. So there is like a easier path to doing that. The flip side is it's harder to do that when you're busy. It's harder to do that if you're on a honeymoon, if you're flying to film all these different things, whether it's, again, a show or commercials or playing in golf, matches, all these things. So, yeah, I mean, you definitely get to a point where you just don't want to do all the work. Even a guy, you look at like Aaron Donald, at how fanatic he is about working out and all that. It's still very different than when he was working out with the intention of playing football again. It's just especially for a guy like Travis who has to do so many things on the field in terms of the volume of running. So he's got to be in a certain level of shape, and then the physicality in the blocking game. So he's got to balance those two things with being big and strong enough, and then keeping his speed and having the stamina and the durability to do all that. So it's not easy to get prepared for an NFL season. It's definitely a grind. To your point, it's at this point in his career the harder part of it. So we'll see what he's going to do.
You think EB has an effect on that? Like I could see him saying, Pat's not going to miss too much time. Let's say Pat doesn't come back week 1. Nobody thinks he'd be back like week 9. He's going to be back in the first part of the season. Pat's coming back. EB's coming back. Maybe the Chiefs go take a big swing in free agency. Like, this team could very easily win the division next year. They could very easily be back in the conversation of being one of the better teams in the AFC. Like, the foundation is not completely gone there. There's a lot of reasons why I think you could come back and justify coming back for one more season. And you said it. He's playing at a high level still.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't need all those justifications to come back. It could be as simple as, I love playing football. It's a great situation. I love Kansas City. I love Coach Reed, and I love Mahomes, and I want to keep playing football. Like, you don't need all those justifications if it's still something that you love. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think, again, it's kind of a win-win, and you could look at it as a lose-lose, because it's like the thing that he's giving up is hard to give up for a year, whether it's, the media career, the personal life, or the football season. But no, I don't think all these things are going to be an extra enticing factor for him. I think it just comes down to how much he still loves playing football, how much he's willing to do to prepare for it,